Follow Paddy Power on Snapchat. The username is The Paddy Power, and we promise there won't be any boring snaps about gigs, the weather, or the gym.
Hello and welcome to this Monday Postcast. I'm Maddie Plough, joined full studio. Always good to have a full studio. Joined by Dave Orton and James Hill. Binners is on the line as well. Paul Binfield from Paddy Power. As always, we're going to start off with a weekend review. The main action coming from Cheltenham and Doncaster, but also lots of stuff going on in Ireland as well. Let's start off with the Cotswold Chase. Gold Cup trial in theory. Frodon, he got home just from Elegant Escape, who sort of stayed on. Wonderful performance, wonderful story, Dave, with Bryony Frost again riding him magnificently. What chance do you give him in the Blue Ribbon in March?
Place chance. I mean, we gave him a race post rating of 170 for that. You've got to remember that Presenting Percy, although he hasn't been seen in his second season yet over fences, the current market leader has a 170 in his bag as well. So that, yeah, you know, that puts him about £8 off winning a Gold Cup. It would have done last year anyway. He's a tiger, isn't he, basically? My one worry with him...
Trip, do you think, you know... are you getting as wound up as others in this debate that he'd be better off in a Ryanair?
I think it depends how hard they go in it. Sometimes they don't go hard in a Gold Cup. Other days they can go hell for leather. So it will depend on the tactics of the race. He's a horse that likes to be up there, isn't he? Let's face it. He was out on his feet a little bit at the line. Better ground, I suppose, in March would help. My worry about him is exactly as it was this time last year. Is he a winter horse? Does he lose his form a little bit? We'll see. Paul Nicholls certainly says he's training him for the Gold Cup. Rightly so. I think he is a Gold Cup horse, so whether he'll be winning in it is another matter.
Yeah, and he's obviously very confident that they can change things. You know, I know he said that Bryony Frost asked him for more off the home turn. He thinks he can get him fitter and things like that. Jimmy, Gold Cup, yes or no?
Not for me, Mads, I'm afraid. I mean, I know we all love Frodon. I personally can't see him being good enough. He's got a rating of 169 he had on Saturday. I personally think that's too high. I mean, in a handicap, he would have been given the second and third £10 and £11. He was actually only giving them £2 or £3, and he only just won. So I think he's probably rated a bit too high. Add to that, you know, his 4 completed starts in Grade 1s. I think he's averaging, being beaten an average distance of about 30 lengths. So although he's progressive, he's still got a lot of ground to make up for me. Yeah,
an Elegant Escape. He stayed on really nicely, but Tom Siegel's mentioned it before, he just doesn't seem to jump well enough and he needs a real trip. Yeah, I mean, he jumped well last season. In open company, he hasn't jumped as well this term. But I think he's a Grand National horse for the future myself. I wouldn't have thought he'd be quick enough to ever win a Gold Cup unless it turned up an absolute bog. Maybe like last year, I wouldn't have thought. Could be in a conundrum now with him, Dave, couldn't they, off sort of top weight?
He's an interesting horse. I mean, Presenting Percy fans will be loving the fact that he ran close on Saturday because, of course, he was third beating Miles in the RSA. Even if he's a much better horse this season. I think that James is right. He looks a national horse, doesn't he? The problem is he'll be top weight in that. So where do they go with him now? They're obviously going to.
We might as well.
He's quite young for the national as well. I mean, older horses tend to win the national. So I'm saying he's more a Grand National horse for the future rather than this season.
And now, obviously, Presenting Percy, he won on reappearance. We might as well chuck him in now while we're talking about the Gold Cup. You saw everything you wanted to see, really, and he's a worthy Gold Cup favourite, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was asked to write an assessor piece about that immediately afterwards, and it was hard to be anything but impressed, I think.
Yeah.
Won it last year. Will they go to Red Mills now? Probably. It looks that way. He was beaten in that, of course.
Yeah, by our Duke.
Yeah, and then went on to be so impressive at Cheltenham. 2 from 2 over fences. I think he has to be the market leader. Whether 11-4 is a bit skinny at the moment, that sort of price. I think a couple of firms went 11-4. You know, with Native River perhaps going to win at the Denman Chase, that 5-1 about him will go as well. So I wouldn't be getting involved at 11-4. But if you have been waiting for him because he's been taking such a long time to come, you had to be impressed and massively pleased.
Yeah. Jimmy, I just love the way he does everything because he travels so well. He doesn't pull, but then he's a really good stayer and he pricks his ears and he only really does what he needs to do. Yeah. Is there any chinks in his armour?
Very few. I think he's a very professional horse. In a similar type of horse, I'd say, to Bobsworth or Seymour Business. I mean, just gets over his fences, doesn't exert much energy, travels well, got to turn a foot at the end of the race. I mean, I think he's the horse to beat in the Gold Cup. I can't see Native River winning it again. I mean, it's just the fact we haven't seen him over fences since his RSA win, I don't think. So it's you know, that's a long time, but hopefully we'll see him jump fences in the Red Mills again, and you know, if he wins that nicely, then yeah, he'd be a strong favourite for me.
That's interesting about Native River, Jimmy. Is it a case that he won a substandard renewal, or did he might bite on the wrong ground?
I just think, Dave, he's had too many hard races. I mean, I love Native River. He tries his heart out every time. But I mean, you watch him in the King George. I mean, people said, he didn't like Kempton. I think that's true. But right from the get-go, I mean, he was being pushed and scrubbed along. I mean, he surely can't win a Gold Cup again if he's racing like that.
Yeah.
Talking about clear second favourite, probably.
Yeah, young improving horses for me win the Gold Cup. I think he's been around a few years now, and he does give himself a hard race because he does race so far behind the bridle. I think it's going to catch up with him eventually.
Okay. Before we move on, Binners, can we get some updated Gold Cup prices from you? Frodon, Elegant Escape, and of course presenting Percy.
Yeah, well, good afternoon, Maddie. Presenting Percy after the race at Goran. We went 11-4 favourite from 4. He's now 5-2 favourite, so the money's come in for him. Frodon, we went immediately after Saturday's race, 25 from 33. Remember, Paddy Power non-runner, no bet on the Gold Cup. But he's now into 16-1. And Elegant Escape is a bigger price at 20-1. But I'm sure we'll come back to the Grand National, Margaret. And he's 14-1 favourite for that at the moment.
Fantastic. Let's move on to the Ballymore Novices Hurdle, won by Birchdale, brewing up a storm. Would he have won, Dave? I think so, but it's hard to tell. It probably would have been close, wouldn't it?
I think he got lucky, Birchdale. I think that brewing up a storm had yet to be asked the same question. Interestingly, the handicappers rated them the same with the RPRs, 147. I don't know, I was maybe expecting a little bit more from Birchdale. That Warwick race I covered for the post in the analysis section, it was sizzling form. And he looked like a horse that, on a sound surface, would have a bit to say. I'm not totally sure he looked like he wanted an Albert Bartlett trip, and I didn't love the way that he kept on. 8 out of 10 times, I think my opinion would be that Bruin was on.
Yeah, and brewing up a storm hasn't really had things go his way. I mean, he strikes me as a horse who's fast, but he also stays well, and he needs a good pace to aim at. Whereas, on his first run, he had to make his own running, and then there went a bit of a crawl in Machallo, probably not ideal for him. So I really do hope he can get a win on the board. Jimmy, would you be looking at either for Cheltenham?
I'd be much more interested in brewing up a storm, Mads. I've got a bit of a maybe controversial view on him. I think they're running him over the wrong trip. I think they should be running him over 2 miles. Both his wins have come over 2 miles. I was really impressed with him when he won at Huntingdon. Had some good horses in behind him. I mean, for instance, Flash the Steel, who ran well at Cheltenham on Saturday, he beat him absolutely hollow. And for a novice, I mean, he was running off 140 on Saturday. I mean, everyone's getting excited about another novice, Al Dancer, running off 141 in the Betfair Hurdle. If Brewing Up a Storm was running off 140 in the Betfair Hurdle, I'd be really interested in him.
That's
really
a good point.
For that, of course, haven't they?
Yeah,
Which is maybe swaying it.
Yeah, maybe, but I think a fast run 2 miles is what he needs. I'm not saying he doesn't stay 2.5. I just think it would play more to his strengths.
He's quick, isn't he?
I think he's got a really good cruising speed.
He really was impressive.
It was a great shame to see him fall, actually, because I thought he jumped pretty well up to that point.
Yeah.
That's the issue with him, isn't it? Heading into Cheltenham on a fall is a disaster, isn't it? They're going to need to get a soft opening for him.
It can be. I mean, some horses bounce back from it incredibly well. I mean, Annabelle Fly, I couldn't have him running a good race in the Gold Cup at all last season. He took a crashing fall the time before. It just depends how the horse bounces back. But if he can, I would, if I were them, give him an entry in the Supreme. Yeah, I think they'd be making a mistake if they didn't at least do that.
Okay, very, very interesting there. Binners, how did the market react for the Ballymore?
Well, for the Ballymore, Maddie, Brewing Up a Storm is actually now 12-1 from 25-1. Possibly more relevantly, the Albert Bartlett Birchdale is 7-1 favourite from that. For that, went there from 20-1 immediately after the race, and then James is very keen on Brewing Up a Storm for the Supreme. Well, that one's 20-1 for the Supreme. If listeners
might be worth a go.
And no, we're non-running no bet on the championship races, Maddie, not on the novice hurdles. But it's
go on, sort it out.
I'd love to make a name for myself, but my bosses might not be so impressed. So listen, it's 20-1, a big price anyway, and. If James Hill fancies it, then it could be worth a couple of quid.
Now, not too impressed with Birchdale, but you couldn't help but be impressed with Paisley Park in the Cleeve Hurdle. Dave, what can you say? I mean, he's beaten them all legless, and he wasn't doing a tap in front, and I was sort of struggling to buy him before the race, but you couldn't help but been really, really impressed.
It was the long walk form which came to the fore, wasn't it? And I guess that we were all thinking that long walk looked a little bit of a muddling finish. I liked him going into it. I thought Midnight Shadow would run better. He didn't really turn up. Maybe the ground had gone against him.
I think maybe he didn't stay, and I know he got impeded, didn't he, at one stage? Yeah. So.
And Au Petit Soin, he didn't really pick up either. So, but the form, West Approach, who seems to run well in these races all the time, he was placed to catch exactly the sort of horse you like, not just because of the colours.
Just because he's a nutter and
you like these horses that don't win.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, fair enough. I mean, a Black Op in third looked like he stayed. Not totally convinced about him. I never really have been. Sam Spinner in fourth, Lil Rockefeller. It was a proper pace though, wasn't it?
Yes.
And you have to love the way that he hit a flat spot and stayed on. He beats all the British for me. It's just whether Penhill turns up now.
Yeah, Jimmy, do you think he's going to win the Stayers, or are you going to be keeping your eyes peeled on some of the Irish horses?
Well, I think that's the thing. I mean, the Willie Mullins battalions are going to provide a sterner test for Paisley Park, definitely. But he really thrived off that pace, didn't he? Dave, you're absolutely right. They went a real, true gallop in that, and I know some people said it. The way he won reminded them of Thistlecrack a bit. I mean, I think he was more like English.
Let's not get carried away now.
Well, I think he was more like English Drever. You at the top of the hill, you couldn't have him.
Yeah.
Well, he's trod a similar path as Thistlecrack, but he hits
the
a
mighty
flat spot.
Thistlecrack travels better, according to Maddie.
Nothing travels better than Thistlecrack. You can't say anything else in front of Mads, can we?
No.
No, but if a fast run Stayers, I think he'd have a big chance. He's been one of the success stories of this jump season, actually, so I'll certainly be cheering for him.
It would be great to see
story.
her have a Cheltenham Festival winner, wouldn't it? I mean, this season so far, we have seen some smaller trainers, certainly in Ireland as well, mainly because of the ground situation. They've taken some big prizes. He would be an amazing story.
And for the owner as well, what a guy who's clearly put so much into racing.
It's a good story, that, wasn't it?
Watching him, really emotional, lovely stuff.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I think we're all in agreement there. Binners, what price Paisley Park? I'm sure he must have come in for quite a bit of money after that performance.
Yeah, the market's had a bit of a shake-up, Maddie. Just quickly about Andrew Gamble, the visually impaired owner of Paisley Park. You're absolutely right. It's great to see the inclusivity of racing. It's brilliant to see him there, and it's emotional seeing him on the winners' podium. Paisley Park is now 9-4 favourite. He was 5-2 second favourite earlier on. I don't know if we've had a bit of news. Presenting Percy had been our favourite, even though he looks like going for the Gold Cup. He is entered in the Stayers hurdle, but he's now out to 11-4 favourite from 2-1 favourite. So we've had flip-flopping favourites with Emma Lavelle's taking the head of the market.
Okay, brilliant. Now, other winners over the weekend, Fakir Dudery, we've got to mention him, really impressive. Shot to the head of the Triumph Hurdle market. Dave, it's been a bit of a weak division so far, but Ireland seemed to hold the key and he just blew them out the water, didn't he?
They do, big time. Of course, we've got Kempton coming, the Adonis. That is where hopefully some Brits will turn up and light this up, because it's been a stale division. Sir Eric, of course, is trained by Joseph O'Brien. We'll see him in the spring, we hope, on Saturday. This chap, I was impressed with. I backed him because I got told that the Mullins horse that he beat at Fairyhouse last month prior to that race was very good. He was a big drifter, and he gave him quite a bit of weight. Fast Buck, he's called. Look out for him next time. But Fakir Dudery, I just thought, I wasn't sure Charlie would go on the track. I'm not sure he did.
He was really well backed, wasn't he? I think that spoke volumes as well.
Yeah, I think, again, whether he really liked the track, I don't know. But it was a 1-2 for Joe O'Brien. We gave him a race pace rating of 147. That's definitely Desoy's territory. This is Apple's Shakir, of course, won that race as well. They tend to go off favourite. I love the way that he was so keen early and still kept going up that hill.
Yeah.
JJ Steven must have been really surprised. And I love the way that they attacked with it as well. You often see these Irish horses, they come over and they sort of wait their time on the first run at Cheltenham. Not a bit of it. That was Joseph O'Brien's first Cheltenham winner in his own name. Of course, we know that he had a say in a former Triumph Hurdle winner as well. And he, not surprisingly, given his connections, this is a division he should really do well in. And I do like this bloke a lot. We'll see what Sir Eric does, but for me at the moment, that's your Triumph winner.
Jimmy, do you think possibly something else could come out of the woodwork? Or
most definitely. Now, the Spring Juvenile Hurdle at the weekend will be an absolute key trial. I mean, it usually is. one thing, I'd absolutely agree with you on what you said. I think Ireland absolutely are going to dominate this division again. I mean, they've got the first 4 or 5 of the top 6 in the market. And they've dominated this division for the last 3 years, really. I mean, if you take Defi Dassault's brilliant performance out of it in the 2017 Triumph, they would have had the first 3 for the last 3 runnings of that race. So they really are looking very dominant. If Fakir Duderie doesn't win the Triumph, I would expect it to be something from the Spring Juvenile at the weekend, so that's one to watch.
Likely to be from the same stable. Binners, what price now is Fakir Duderie for the Triumph?
Well, he's now 11-2 favourite, Maddie. As you said, he was very, very well backed on Saturday. I think we were 12-1 in the morning, and he won at about 4-1. So we got a bit of a battering from him, and he looked good. Sir Eric 7-1, 10-1 Tiger Tap, and it's 14 bar. I hear what you guys are saying about the Irish, but I don't think right off Kel Destan yet for Paul Nicholls. Every time he does an interview, he mentions this horse and he seems to like him. So hopefully the English can launch some sort of challenge for the race as well.
Yeah, he's certainly got the right attitude. We mentioned Triumph Hurdle. Well, Espoir Dallin probably would have won it if he would have been right last year, and he's now sort of emerging as a dark horse for the Champion Hurdle, Jimmy. What did you make of his win on Sunday?
Yeah, I really liked it. I mean, I didn't think, gosh, that could win the Champion Hurdle, but he certainly deserves to take his chance in the race. I mean, good backup to have, considering they've also got Buvardere, the JP McManus team. 5-year-olds, 1 or 2 of them tend to run quite well in the Champion Hurdle without actually winning it. So he's the sort of horse I could see making the frame, running a personal best, but not being quite good enough.
Okay, and Dave, we've got loads of other horses we could mention. Honeysuckle, a winner in Ireland, lots of people like her. Go Conquer won at Doncaster, Dynamite Dollars. We had Cyril Delac, Kildare at Cheltenham, Lady Buttons at Donny as well. And then Invitation Only winning the Thyestes as well, also probably worth a mention. So what's your pick? What are your main takeouts from this weekend?
Should we start with the Thyestes? Some gamble, wasn't it? Again, you do see these massive gambles. He's won it with the likes of Jack Adam, of course, who then went on to the Gold Cup. I had lost a little bit of faith in Invitation Only, I must admit that. I know a lot of people were very keen on him, including
Just the
Dave
best
Jennings
horse in the
well.
race, wasn't he?
Yeah, but
it was almost like a non-handicap.
He could have
for
been
me.
called the winner quite a long way out. It was a brilliant ride. Form looks pretty good, doesn't it? I think up for review. I thought ran a massive race because he was
Irish
wide
National,
all the way.
I think, gotta be
Very
something like
nice.
that.
Yeah, like that. So whether we saw a Gold Cup type performance, I don't know. Probably, maybe more national. I just like the way that he put his jumping back together. So he's back on the radar now. I think rightly so. Honeysuckle, who you mentioned, I absolutely love this mare. Lorena won that race at Fairy House on Saturday last year that she absolutely hosed up in. I know the Mullins horse, Robin DiCarlo, was probably running over the wrong trip, but the second is a good horse and she won it so easily. She's 1-1-1-1-1. Henry de Bromhead, 5-1 for the mares. I think we'll look a big price in March.
Okay, Jimmy, I mentioned some of the other Cheltenham winners, Kildare, Cyril Delac there. Dynamite Dollars, of course, he's done so little wrong, but lots of people keen to take him on in the Arkle market. What was your takeout from the weekend mainly?
Well, I thought that those 2 Cheltenham handicaps over 2.5 miles, both the winners of those races can go on to better things. Kildare, I mean, I thought he was much the best horse in the race. Just a question whether he's now going to go up in not too much, so he gets into the close brothers. It's a 0-145, isn't it? I think he's currently on 141, Dave. Is that right?
And we gave him a racing post rate of 155 around about that. So their connections and you're right, Jimmy. He's looking like a JLT horse all of a sudden.
Yeah,
good. Well, yeah, whether he'd be good enough to win a JLT, I don't know.
That's where we might have to go.
I think that they're quite keen on going for the close brothers with him.
Yeah.
Cyril Delac, I mean, find me a better jumper of a fence in training. I mean, he's absolutely electric over his fences. Very exciting to watch. I can't wait to see him jump around Aintree one day. Big future he's got. And the second horse, was it Javica? Janica, that's it. Yeah, he could be a Ryanair.
To give him that much
outsider,
weight.
actually. Yeah, he was giving him a lot of weight, and they pulled well clear of the third horse is quite decent.
Didn't do anything wrong, did he?
Didn't do anything wrong, and he's young and improving. I could see him being a contender for that now.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a boost for Hell's Kitchen as well. Janica running well, who I know Tom Segal's quite keen on to run a huge price in the Champion Chase because he's just very, very talented. So, I mean, this weekend is exactly what it should have been. Loads of clues. Probably saw a Cheltenham winner or 2 along the way. It was a top weekend. If you haven't seen the racing, you must go back and watch it.
Yeah, and I think
Real Steel. Sorry, I just want to mention him as well. Very, very impressive at Fairy House on ground that probably was a bit too soft for him. we mustn't forget, Real Steel, him and Sharjah, they were the two horses that fell independently in that dramatic race at Leopardstown last season. And he was also running a big race at Leopardstown when he fell at the last over Christmas. But I think he's generally a good jumper. He certainly jumped well on Saturday.
Is he a JLT?
I think he could be a JLT horse, definitely. He's right in the mix.
You have to think with the owners that will go.
Yeah. Okay. Personally, I think Trials Day often got a bit of stick back in the day, didn't it? But I think it's really important to sort of take these races as individual races as well as trials, because they produce some lovely winners, some lovely stories, and whether they win at Cheltenham, they've had their day at least at the weekend, and it's a really nice day that's come together really well now.
I think the weather's helped a little bit this season as well. It can be an utter bog there, which wasn't the case. So.
Yeah, indeed. We're going to take a break now, but before we do, it's competition time. 2 lucky winners and a guest each will be given the opportunity to visit 2 of the biggest yards in Ireland, that of Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott, to see their Cheltenham Festival stars up close and personal on the gallops. For more information on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, visit racingpost.com/competition to be in with your chance of winning. Best of luck.
Success ain't earned, it's bought. That's why at Paddy Power, we paid the big bucks for the best tech nerds in the world to develop our new, fastest ever app. Download the new app from the App Store or Play Store now. 18+, begambleaware.org.
Welcome back to this Monday Postcast. Now we're going to take time to talk about the Dublin Racing Festival now. A wonderful weekend of action, so much to cover. We're going to try and be brief. Dave, first off, let's kick off with the 2 mile 6 furlong Grade 1 novice on the Saturday. Thoughts on this?
Yeah. It looks like an Albert Bartlett trial. Tower Bridge won it last year. Pont Alexandra won it back in the day before he went and got beaten by the new one in the Ballymore. So they can go that way. There's hundreds entered. So I think Animix is quite interesting. Up in trip.
Dubbed as the supreme talking horse, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He could be interesting, I think. He just looked like a horse that might want a bit of a trip. And if you think that Mullins' horses have improved a little bit, and he's back in sizzling form now, order has been restored, he'd be one I would expect him to be near the top of the market if he went.
Yeah, and Binners, any betting?
We haven't got betting on that one, Maddie. As you said, there's sort of hundreds in there at the moment. As soon as the decks 5 days come through tomorrow, I'm sure we will have.
Okay, and Jimmy, quickly, any thoughts on this one?
No strong horse. Cuneo looked a nice horse to me last time. I'd be interested to see how he goes. But I think it's more a watching brief for that race. So many unexposed horses taking each other on for the first time. Interested to see how they go. Yeah,
the Dublin Chase, of course, 2 mile 1 furlong with Grade 1. Sure to be another cracker, Dave.
Who will turn up is the question here. We've got Footpad, Min and Undersow. And Simply Ned, we've got to keep mentioning him. Yeah. He comes back into the reckoning again because he loves the place.
What a horse, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. He's usually overpriced, isn't he? I would if you believe the overreach aspect, which we have to really, with Footpad, it probably was a pretty good run in defeat last time. It'd be interesting to see which way they go with Min, of course. Is he now a Ryanair? I don't know. So it's a case of which ones turn up, really. Yeah, sure to be a cracker either way. Binners, I heard that money was coming for Undersow. He's the one that people are latching on to. Is that correct?
Yeah, Undersow's now 5-1. He has been as big as 8-1, Maddie. Footpad 11-8 favourite, which looks short enough to me. 9-4 Min. And then Simply Ned at 7-1, who Dave just mentioned. Every time he goes over to Ireland, he seems to run a blinder, and it's great. I think it's going to be an even better Dublin Festival this year, if that's possible, with a greater UK representation. Yeah, exactly. Jimmy, it's great to see Simply Ned. Such an old horse, but he's been a really good horse for connections. It'd be great to see him do it again, but do you think he can against sort of classier opposition, maybe, if they're at their best? No, I'd be surprised if at least one of that Mullins trio didn't beat him this time. I know he does seem to love Leopardstown, but I think one of those 3 will beat him. I mean, I'll be quite nervous on Saturday, Mads. I'm a huge Footpad fan. I've been following him for 2 years. This season has been a little bit of a disaster, really. Although I did think, actually, that was a much better run last time, considering what a big problem he had at Naas first time out. He looked like he was going to win it, didn't he? And then it just didn't happen. Yeah, well, I'm just hoping that's because, he needed the run. I mean, because the first outing at Naas was such a disaster. I think, really, that you could almost say that race at Leopardstown was his first proper contest of the season. I mean, if he returns to his form of last season, I think he'll win it.
But I don't know. I don't know if he's in the same sort of form. I just have my doubts. Underso, you can, set your watch by him. I expect him to go very close, whatever happens.
I'd love to see him. I just like to see these horses turn up.
You could argue that Underso should be favourite actually on that on what they've done so far this season. He's the only one to get near Altior, isn't he? So
yeah, 5-1's a big price. I think that was probably a career best at Sandown, maybe. Moving on to the Arkle trial, another really informative race, sure to give lots of pointers towards Cheltenham, Dave.
Yes, Paloma Blue is quite interesting. That I must admit, he's never been a horse that's really been on my radar. I always thought he was a bit too keen over hurdles, but we know that he has got some good novice form. And as Jimmy mentioned, Real Steel. Would he have beaten Paloma Blue at Leopardstown first time, but for falling? Because he won that race course Blue. So that form has got a bit of a boost, hasn't it?
No, it's just a definite boost. Yeah.
So and he's like, he's a 10-1 shot in a division with Laricheborg, who I like a lot, for Joe O'Brien. Whether he should be that skinny, I don't know. I think they thought he might want a little bit further. If you remember that Drimore form with Delta Work. Yeah. Knockanoose will be interesting, of course, because he came up against an absolute monster at Plumpton, who the Master Dean, unfortunately, now on the easy list. There's going to be a serious pace in this race, I think you can say that. That will suit Paloma Blue. So for the first time, I'm looking at him as a betting proposition.
OK, Binners, over to you.
Yeah, 11-8 for Joseph O'Brien's Laricheborg. Maddie, Knockanoose. I was at Plumpton that day, as you were. What a great race that was. Shame about Guillaume Macair's what looked like a potential star. 4-1, second favourite, and then we got 3 horses on 7: Paloma Blue, Mengley Khan, and Articulum, 8-1 bar.
Yeah, indeed, Jimmy.
Fascinating race. Paloma Blue, I wasn't that impressed by his jumping at Leopardstown last time, but it was his first chase start, wasn't it? So he could certainly improve on that. On some of his hurdle form, he'd have a big chance. Fascinated if Knockanoose comes over, because then we can really connect the British and Irish form. And I was very impressed with Laricheborg over Christmas. I'd probably just narrowly go for him, given that was, top class form.
OK, now we know that Willie Mullins tends to enter his horses all over the place, but just in the break we were talking about how Faheen is entered in the Irish Champion Hurdle, back over 2 miles. Would he have given Apples Jade a race last time? I thought he was running a huge race, Dave. It was so good to see him up, because I think we were all fearing the worst for a little bit. Yeah,
big time. Yeah, he has been. For a horse that has achieved as much as he has also been a little bit unlucky, certainly in the late stage of his career. How many Champion Hurdles would he have won if he'd have been sound? He's a staying hurdle now, so I'd be surprised if he had the toe to win it. But I don't really like the market that much. Apples Jade, okay, on ability, I think probably in that lineup she has to be favourite. We're expecting Lorena maybe to not turn up. I think that's the idea. Mellon is entitled to improve on that last time. But Apples Jade and Super Sunday, they've got loads of collateral form. Super Sunday, great horse, of course, won it last year. But I wonder whether Sharjah, and it's just a muddling race for me. Apples Jade, there'll be pressure on them to run in the Champion Hurdle now if she wins this.
Yeah, I think we all wanted to, because she's been such a star, Jimmy, but they're going to go to the mares, aren't they?
Well, I really hope not, Mads. It sounds like they're going to run in this, which is great. I'm really with Tom Segal on this. I think she could win this nicely, and then there'll be enough pressure on them to maybe change their minds and go for the Champion Hurdle. Apples Jade, when she's in this sort of form, she is a seriously good mare. I thought that was a performance of the season in the Hatton's Grace. Absolutely brilliant. I personally don't think Faheen would have got anywhere near her. I mean, she just scooted home very easily last time over Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, my eyes were just on her. I've got a bit of a theory about her. I think she thrives on racing. I think they got it wrong last year. Obviously, she got beaten in the Mares Hurdle at Cheltenham. I think that
in season last year, wasn't she?
Yeah, and that gap, I just don't think it's ideal for her. Yeah. She just thrives on racing, race. She is a wonder mare.
I love her, absolutely love her to bits, and I'm sure a lot of the racing public agree, so it will be great to see if she turns up there, wins, and more pressure's put on for her to go for the Champion Hurdle at Cheltenham. Sunday, we're going to flick through that really quickly. First off, we spoke about the juveniles, and more informative, we could get a better idea of what's going on in that race.
Yes. It probably will be the juvenile race of the season, I think, so far. Sir Eric and Tiger Tap, of course, met at Leopardstown over Christmas. I backed the Mullins runner-up that day, and he got the last slightly wrong, although I was quite impressed by the way that Sir Eric went about his business, and I think he might just confirm that form. Course Sublime, we should mention as well, another unlucky horse.
Reputation not gone his way, is it?
2 back, he didn't get the rub of the green, I don't think, should have won. Chief Justice nutted him, and he would have won last time, but for the fall, I think. It's just about how he comes out of that. But this is, this will be a sizzling matchup. I've got a lot of respect for the two at the top of the market.
OK, Jimmy, anything to add?
Whereas it's going to be very much a watching brief. I really think you could see the Triumph Hurdle winner in here. Whether it would be the Mullins or Sir Eric, we'll wait and see. But I was impressed by Sir Eric last time. He had decent form on the flat. I think he's Joseph O'Brien's number one.
He's a stayer as well, wasn't he? So
that's what you need for the Triumph.
The hill, exactly. Yeah,
you need that on the new.
It's almost like he should be running over further than 2 miles.
Yeah. We'll move on quickly. The Flogas always, it was a cracking race last year, wasn't it? Always bound to be a good race. A novice chase over 2 mile 5 furlongs. Any fancy, Steve?
One of my favourite races of the season. Delta Work I'm in love with. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I think Ireland probably have the RSA winner. You could argue that this is a JLT trial, I suppose, over the trip. Much will depend on where Le Bagoire goes, who, again, story of the season, get another mare, isn't it?
That sounds like she is going to go there.
Looks that way, because Cheltenham's a bit of a moot point with her, isn't it? So she is entered in the Scilly Isles as well. But let's hope she goes, though, because then we can get a nice mark. She has jumped so well. But Delta Work, I just think he only does enough. He obviously came onto the radar when he won the Potemps last year. But some people, not these handicappers, but as we've seen, they can do it. Paisley Park, for example. I think he's the real deal. So I'm not going to back against him as much as I love the mare.
Binner's thoughts on the Flogas?
Well, I'm a huge Warren Greatrex fan. This La Bagoire, she jumped so well. I'd love to see her win, and I think Delta Works a short price at 11-8 to beat her because she's so tough. Then we go 2-1 La Bagoire, 11-2 Winter Escape, 8-1 Camellia Turcotte. But I'm sure she's going to run in Ireland. Warren Greatrex has been saying that all along, and it would be brilliant to go over there and scoop a few of those Irish Euros.
It would indeed. Jimmy, final thoughts to you.
Well, fascinating to see what happens if La Bagoire were to go over and face off with Delta Work. There's also another mare I like in that race, Camellia Turcotte. I've been very impressed by her this season, really impressed by her jumping. I'm not sure she will turn up in this, but I think she's definitely one to keep an eye on for the future for the spring festivals. If she did run in this, she could be an each way bet.
Yeah, okay. And Binners, now the Gold Cup picture could get a bit clearer with the Unibet Irish Gold Cup. How do they bet currently?
Yeah, that would be the hope. We'll get a bit more interpretation, but for the Unibet Gold Cup, we go 11-4 Noel Meads Road to Respect, 5-1 Bells Hill and Alboom Photo, 7 Kenboy and Presenting Percy, 9 Monolith, and it's 12-1 Bar. But an absolute crackerjack in store, Maddie, and the British people will be going over there in the droves this weekend.
Yeah, they will be. Road to Respect, lots of people jumping on his side after his last run. Dave, very unlucky it seemed. Are you with him this time?
I think he's going to be over bet. And this is a race that's making my head hurt, actually. It's a division in Ireland that's making my head hurt.
A little bit, isn't it? It's that way.
It seems to be after you a bit. Alboom Photo, what you were saying, Jimmy, these up-and-coming second seasons, he fits the bill for me. Again, another really unlucky horse. Probably would have finished third in an RSA had he stood up. And then we all saw what happened at the Punchstone Festival. I like him. Whether I like him enough for a Gold Cup is another matter. But I guess if I was playing anyway, that would be it.
Okay, and Kenboy, Jimmy, lots to say about the ride that he was given last time. People aren't really taking that form on face value. Do you think that was true, or do you think he can be dangerous when steps up again in class and for something like the Gold Cup?
Oh, he's definitely a contender for the Gold Cup. I mean, he won that impressively. Yes, Road to Respect met plenty of trouble in running, but even if he got a clear run, I don't think he would have got anywhere near the winner. Just like to see Kenboy do that again, really. I think he's got plenty of ability, but... Do
you not think it was he turned it into a bit of a sprint and the jockey taking initiative took the shine off it a bit, or do you think, no, we're overlooking...
He had the run of the race, but I mean, he was going away from them. I mean, it wasn't like, they were catching him, he'd slipped them and they were catching him or something. I think he was a dominant winner of a good race. But I'd like to see him do it again, and it concerns me at Cheltenham last year. I think he made 1 or 2 annoying little mistakes when I backed him for the JLT. Yes, he seems to, when he gets it right at his fences, he's very good. But he
only in the same race, both did the same.
Yeah, he just seems to be one of these horses that you always kind of feel he's capable of making a mistake. I want to put a word in for Monolith because I'm a big fan of his. I think he's
over 3 miles again.
Well, I don't. I don't think 3 miles is a problem. I think, he's twice run over 3 miles at Cheltenham. He's just been beaten by better horses in presenting Percy and Penhill. But I think he's too big in the Gold Cup market. I mean, Elegant Escape's a shorter price than he is. But I mean, he's met Elegant Escape twice at Cheltenham. He's got similar form to Album Photo. Album Photo is half the price in the Gold Cup market. That's where the value lies for me. And I think he could run another big race here. Maybe even win it.
That's really, really interesting there. Lots of people calling for him to go for the Ryanair. So you're saying up, they're saying down. We'll see what happens. Yeah. We could talk about the Dublin Racing Festival for hours, I'm sure. But we've got midweek racing and we've got Saturday racing as well. Sandown, Musselburgh and Wetherby, where the cards are at this weekend. The Contenders Hurdle, Bouvardere likely to turn up there. Dave, small field, is it likely to be once again?
Looks that way, doesn't it? It's been reopened at the time that we're recording this, so we'll see what turns up. This is his lead audition, if you like. He had an easy race last time and then just won at Cheltenham. Again, I go back to the fact that the Bouvardere chased too strong a pace, and the closers nearly got him in last year's champion. I don't think it was his fault at all. I think Henderson's been a bit harsh on himself.
Interestingly,
there, really.
Nicky Henderson said he wished he would have had a harder race in this race last year to be more prepared for Cheltenham.
Well, he certainly had one at Kempton last time.
Yeah.
So he's got a little bit to prove again, but he should come through with flying colours again. It's just great to see him out again. You know, people at Sandown going, get to see the champion.
Yeah. Jimmy, what do you reckon? Can he be vulnerable even in this sort of race? Or?
Oh, no, he should win this comfortably. I think he could be vulnerable in the champion hurdle, though. I mean, he was, I thought, pretty tired after winning the race last year. And that form of the Fighting Fifth doesn't look so good now. I know he won impressively, and he's been beaten since. So I think he's, a vulnerable champion in the champion hurdle.
Okay, now if we're talking about the Scilly Isles Novices Chase, there's only one place we have to really start, and that's the owners, Simon Munir and Isaac Swade. Won it with Jitanda Burley, Bristol de Mai, top notch, and last year with Tearfor as well, and Darryl Jacob, of course. So whatever they run in, it's surely to be strongly supported, Dave, but a race that often produces a top-class performer.
Yes, absolutely, and it looks, on paper, from what we can see, interesting that OK Corral's in there, over this trip with the 4 mile in mind. Some of these horses may not be too worried about winning, I guess, just getting another run in maybe. I don't know. The Baggo White is obviously in there. Her and Lost in Translation, we know that she pretty much holds the upper hand in that matchup. Although Lost in Translation is a massive horse, and he's one of those that horse. He just progresses as the season goes on. He got it together last time, didn't he? Defi Desoy is interesting up against him. I'm actually on him for the Arkle, Defi Desoy. I thought last time he looked a definite strong 2 miles. He certainly was going to win that Dipper, and the Dipper beating horses in that, they tend to come out and win at Cheltenham. There's a horse in here who is my great white hope for the season as well, in Vindication, who's just 1-1-1-1-1.
Yes.
Probably the best horse that Kim Bailey's had for quite a while. Sandown, that Ascot form's taken a little knot, but he only does enough, this horse. Yeah. And if there's juice underfoot, which looks like they're going to be,
unbeaten,
very hard
you'd think the track would suit him, wouldn't you?
I just love him, absolutely brilliant horse.
What a great horse. Again, I think, even though he was a bit of a talking horse, he seems to have gone under the radar again, because we've not seen him too often. Jimmy, Vindication, do you like him?
I do like him, yes, and there's a bit of rain forecast this week, bit of snow as well, which is a bit of a concern, but I mean, that bit of moisture underfoot would suit Vindication. My concern is the form of the yard. 3 of Kim Bailey's stars have come out, Rocky's Treasure, Charbel, and last weekend Commodore Barry, and all were very disappointing, finished their races off pretty poorly. I backed all 3 of them, by the way.
Not that we could tell
so whether I want to go in again with Vindication, I'm not sure, but I do like it. Definitely just saw, I know he didn't seem to quite stay at Cheltenham, but I think Sandown, the chase track isn't quite as stiff as a new course at Cheltenham. So although that you got that stiff hill, I could see him seeing it out here.
Okay. Still got quite a bit to cover, so we'll really quickly just to mention to the 8/8 Sport Heroes Handicap Hurdle, Grade 3, top of the game, won it last year. Really good race that was, and obviously he went on to narrowly be beaten in the Coral Cup. Really good chasing prospect. Dave, anything take your eye at this early stage?
Well, Ballymoy's in there. He's just a winning machine, isn't he? He's gone up a bit, obviously, for that last win. Keeper Hill is in there as well. Lord Napier, who's got one of these in him, I think, as well. Mr. Antolini is a horse that
lots of people are on the cliff about him.
And he's back at Sandown, which could be the key to him. I thought he ran well at Ascot last time. I thought he was going to win that at their Christmas meeting, and he stayed on strongly for 5th, having hit a flat spot. This might be his trip now. If there's juice underfoot, again, I'll be going back in with him.
Jimmy, don't want to put you on the spot, but any fancy in this?
Just looking at it briefly, I'd be interested in maybe having a few quid on Keeper Hill. I thought he won nicely at Warwick last time, with perhaps a bit more to come. Very annoyed I didn't have a few quid on that day, actually. But he had some good novice hurdle form. He beat that good horse of Alan King's as a novice, didn't he? Mezir de Zobo at Huntingdon. And if you go far back enough, he stays very well, and that's what you want on the hurdle track at Sandown.
Okay, fantastic. We'll just have a quick look at the Midweek Racing right after this.
Check out Paddy's Rewards Club. Simply place 5 bets of £10 or more across any sport in a week, and you'll get a free £10 bet then next week. T&Cs apply. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.
Welcome back to the final instalment of this Monday postcast. It's now time for our midweek racing discussion. I'm just going to run through them really quickly so you know where we're going this week. Tuesday, Downroyal, Newcastle, Lingfield, Wolverhampton. Wednesday, Leicester, Plumpton, Lingfield, Wolverhampton. Thursday, Wincanton, where Pashta Polder, who has won the Fox Hunter for the last 2 years, he could return. Southall, Fakenham, Newcastle. Friday, Catterick, Chepstow, Lingfield, Newcastle, and then into the weekend's action. Anything we fancy that's not your midweek nap, sorry. I'll go to you first, Dave.
Well, we have to hope that most of it's on. I think we could be looking at a few abandonments
Yes.
over the jump. Downroyal Tuesday's quite an interesting card. Andy Dufresne in the bumper.
Which you've been teaching me how to pronounce.
I think it's Andy Dufresne because I couldn't remember the character in what film it was.
We were
and
told
as
Shawshank
producer Adam's now saying it's Shawshank Redemption. So, and you said you've never seen that
No,
film.
I can't believe I've never seen it. I'm clearly doing something wrong, aren't I?
You know, that's one of the best films ever made.
I know.
Never made the cinema.
I don't think
Yeah.
anyone's ever said that to me before. Yeah.
My mum's always having a go at me, telling me to watch it, said it's the best film ever.
Well, this horse
she's
represents-
clearly a film judge.
This horse represents McManus, Elliott, cost a bundle at the sales. I know that you picked it out as well. He won his point really easily. So, he could be a midweek star potentially.
Yeah. I know didn't one of the girls who worked for Gordon Elliott, she was the one who bred it and sold it and earned a lot of money from it. So well done to her. Hope it goes well. Jimmy, any fancies?
Yeah, I've had a look in particular at Thursday's racing. Stonebrig Legend at Fakenham. In the 250 she's entered at. Ran really well in a race last time where the forms worked out. The winner's gone on to go in again after that, and the third ran very well at Huntingdon recently. And she stayed on nicely. I think she's stepping up in trip here and off the same mark, so she's interesting. And we could also be seeing brother Ted make a return at Wincanton. He's been off for a while. His chase mark is I think over a stone lower than when he last ran off Ever Hurdle, so he's well treated and he's got a good record after a long absence. So if he turns up, I'd be interested as well.
Okay, Binners, sorry not to go too much this postcast. We've been cramming a lot in. We're getting the violins out for you, but what's your fancy in the midweek?
That's all right, Margaret. The listeners will be absolutely delighted. In the 3:25 at Downroyal on Tuesday in the novice hurdle, there's a horse I like called Presented Well. He won cleverly at the same track on Boxing Day for Waterford Wizard Henry de Bromhead, and he's put a nice claimer called Hugh Morgan up on board, taking £7 off to negate the penalty. So I think that one will go close.
Okay, excellent. It's time to cue Steve Palmer.
This will not be beaten.
James Hill, what's your nap?
It'll be a little chaos in the 135 at Fakenham on Thursday. I think she won very nicely last time over the course and distance, and she's been given a mark of 120 and the yards in form.
Fantastic. Dave Orton?
You must think I'm mad, but I'm going for a horse that's 0 from 17 in a maiden handicap at Lingfield on Wednesday. I know, very Nick Watts-like, isn't it? But this Violet Lads, she is a winner waiting to happen. She's quite a tricky ride, but there's loads of pace in there. This is her big chance. She should have probably just won at Kempton last time. Get on.
Okay, sound advice, Binners?
1:55 at Newcastle on Tuesday, Maddie, novice hurdle. Long way for Ben Pauling to travel up there with Nesta Park, but I think it'll be worth their while. One at Warwick on his penultimate start, then was disappointing in the top-class Challow hurdle, which was, of course, won by Champ. Possibly a bit overfaced, but back at this level should be highly competitive.
Thanks, Binners, for your selection. It's been a wonderful postcast this week. Always make sure to rate, review and subscribe wherever you're listening to us from. Plenty going on this week, so tomorrow I'm back with an anti-post postcast where we cover the Ryanair, the Supreme and the Ballymore. On Wednesday we've got a numerous amounts of podcasts for you. We've got the golf, we've got the Six Nations and the Super Bowl all being covered. Thursday is the football postcast as per usual, and Bruce will be back on Friday for the tipping show as well, so stay tuned then for all of this weekend's cards and tips for that.
Follow Paddy Power on Snapchat. The username is the Paddy Power, and we promise there won't be any boring snaps about gigs, the weather, or the gym.